Study Section 3. Historical Views of Childhood Development. Over the years, research shows that child development is dependent on their environment and the information enhancing their learning. Introduction. The history of childhood has been a topic of interest in social history since the highly influential book Centuries of Childhood, published by French historian Philippe Harry in 1960. He argued that childhood is a concept created by modern society. Harry studied paintings, gravestones, furniture, and school records and found that before the 17th century, children were represented as mini adults. In this study, your focus should be to learn two basic things: philosophers' views and theories about early childhood and modern views of experts on early childhood. Learning outcomes for study section 3. At the end of this study, you should be able to 1. State the 3 major views of philosophers about early childhood. 2. Examine modern views of experts on early childhood. Medieval understanding of childhood development. Firstly, you are required to go through the historical view of childhood as stated below. It is recommended in order for you to be in a proper perspective of the foundational background of the medieval childhood development. 1. Historical view of childhood. A. Ancient Greece and Rome, 600 BC to 400 AD. 1. Plato, 427 to 347 BC. Nativist, knowledge is inborn. 2. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC. Empiricist, knowledge gained through sensory experience. 3. Infanticide, killing of newborns, females especially. 4. Slave labor, sexual exploitation. B. Medieval period, 1400 AD, fall of Rome. Children wore adult fashions and pursued adult passions, but were also seen as fragile and in need of protection. C. Renaissance, 1300 to 1600. Growing belief that society is partly responsible for care and protection of children. Toy-making industry, play was seen as normal and important in the development of the child. D. Reformation, 1500s. Child rearing taken seriously, emphasis on education. E. Descartes' dualistic model, 1596 to 1650. He believed that we share our biology with animals. This paved the way for studying animals to gain knowledge about humans, but the mind was something humans alone had. The mind contains certain innate ideas, e.g., God and self, ideas of space, time, and motion, which are not derivable from experience. 2. Early theories. Some of the theories are: A. John Locke, 1632 to 1704. Empiricism, all knowledge comes from experience, tabula rasa, blank slate. B. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1712 to 1778. Nativism, innate processes driving force behind development. Human development unfolds naturally in very positive ways as long as society allows it to do so. C. Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882. Competition for survival, natural selection, evolutionary value of behavior, ethology. The baby biographies Darwin observed and recorded his eldest son's behavior. 3. Pioneers of child psychology. A. G. Stanley Hall, 1844 to 1924, father of child psychology. Questionnaire method. Groups of children, biological view, influenced by Darwin. B. Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939. State theory, psychosexual model, drive theory, experience during each stage influences development fixation. C. John B. Watson, 1878 to 1958, founder of behaviorism, got rid of consciousness as an area of scientific study, psychology as a purely objective experimental branch of natural science. The goal is the prediction and control of behavior. The Arnold Gesell, 1920s and 1930s, normative patterns. These patterns unfold naturally with maturation. E. Jean Piaget, 1896 to 1980. Genetic epidemiology knowledge and its changes. Qualitative differences in mistakes children made. Incorrect answers to IQ questions more informative than correct ones. Same kinds of mistakes were made by children of same age. Learning and development must follow sequences. Development and learning always proceed at varying rates. Development and learning normally result from an interaction of maturation and experience. Early experiences always have profound effect on development and learning. Development always proceeds toward greater complexity, self-regulation, and symbolic or representational capacities. Children always develop best when they have secure relationships. Development and learning occur in and are always influenced by multiple social and cultural contexts. Children always learn in a variety of ways. Play is an essential vehicle for developing self-regulation and promoting language, cognition, and social competence. Development and learning are advanced when children are challenged. Children's experiences always shape their motivation and approaches to learning. The modern study of child development. The modern era of studying children has a history that spans only a little more than a century, Cairns 1983-1998. This era began with some important developments in the late 1800s. Why is this past century so special? In the field of child development, this was true of such influential thinkers as Charles Darwin, G. Stanley Hall, James Mark Baldwin, and Sigmund Freud. The natural scientists, even then, underscored the importance of conducting experiments and collecting reliable observations of what they studied. This approach had advanced the state of knowledge in physics, chemistry, and biology. However, these scientists were not at all sure that people, much less children or infants, could be profitably studied in this way. The deadlock was broken when some daring thinkers began to study infants, children, and adolescents, trying new methods of study. For example, near the turn of the century, French psychologist Alfred Binet invented many tests to study attention and memory. He used them to study his own daughters, other normal children, children with mental retardation, extremely gifted children, and adults. Eventually, he collaborated in the development of the first modern test of intelligence, which is named after him, the Binet test. At about the same time, G. Stanley Hall pioneered the use of questionnaires with large groups of children and popularized psychological findings. Later, during the 1920s, a large number of child development research centers were created, White 1995, and members of their professional staff began to observe and chart a myriad of behavior in infants and children. This work became closely associated with the so-called child study movement and a new organization, the Society for Research in Child Development, was formed at about the same time. Another ardent observer of children was Arnold Gesell. With his photographic dome, Gesell, 1928, could systematically observe children's behavior without interrupting them. The direct study of children, which investigators observed children's behavior, conduct experiments, and obtain information about children by questioning their parents and teachers, had an auspicious start in the work of these child study experts. Gesell not only developed sophisticated observational strategies for studying children, but he also had some provocative views on the nature of children's development. He theorized that certain characteristics of children simply bloomed with age because of a biological maturational blueprint. Gesell strove for precision in charting what a child is like at a specific age. Gesell's views, as well as Jean Stanley Hall's, were strongly influenced by Charles Darwin's evolutionary theory. Darwin had made the scientific study of children respectable when he developed a baby journal for recording systematic observations of children. Hall, 1904, believed that child development follows a natural evolutionary course that can be revealed by child study. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory was prominent in the early part of the 20th century. Freud believed that children are rarely aware of the motives and reasons for their behavior and that the bulk of their mental life is unconscious. His ideas were compatible with Hall's, emphasizing conflict and biological influences on development. Although Freud did stress that a child's experiences with parents in the first 5 years of life are important determinants of later personality development. Freud envisioned the child moving through a series of psychosocial stages filled with conflict between biological urges and societal demands. Freud's theory has had a profound influence on the study of children's personality development and socialization, especially in the areas of gender, morality, family processes, and problems and disturbances. During the 1920s and 1930s, John Watson's 1928 theory of behaviorism influenced thinking about children. Watson proposed a view of children very different from Freud's, arguing that children can be shaped into whatever society wishes by examining and changing the environment. Whereas John Watson was observing the environment's influence on children's behavior, and Sigmund Freud was probing the depths of the unconscious mind to discover clues about our early experiences with our parents. James McBaldwin was a pioneer in the study of children's thought. Cairns, 1998. Genetic epidemiology was the term Baldwin gave to the study of how children's knowledge changes over the course of their development. The term genetic at that time was a synonym for developmental, and the term epistemology means the nature or study of knowledge. Baldwin's ideas initially were proposed in the 1880s. Many of you, perhaps, are already familiar with his view that children pass through a series of cognitive or thought stages from infancy through adolescence. According to Piaget, children think in a qualitatively different manner than adults do. The introduction to several influential and diverse theories of children's development has been brief, designed to give you a glimpse of some of the different ways children have been viewed as the study of child development unfolded. Study Section 3 Summary. At the end of this study session, you have learned that 1. Childhood has become such a distinct period that it is hard to imagine that it was not always thought of in that way. 2. The modern era of studying children has a history that spans only a little more than a century. Cairns, 1983-1998. This era began with some important developments in the late 1800s. Why is this past century so special? During the past century, the study of child development has evolved into a sophisticated science. This is the end of study section 3. Thanks for listening.